video starting. It's found us now.
Great.
And we should be... There we go. We're now live.
We're now live from XL Kaplan Arctic Live. Welcome to the Arctic. Welcome to Svalbard and welcome to the UK Arctic Research Station. It's an absolutely lovely... No, it's not. It's an absolutely horrible Arctic day today. The temperature nudging just above freezing and some fairly hideous rain. Rain in the Arctic. So, but a wonderful sort of like, basically that means we can't get out of the fjord to do any of the research, but that does mean that we have the wonderful Clara with us to have a chat about ocean research, getting a doctorate. That sounds pretty amazing, and what it's like to be doing a little bit of research here in the Arctic. And we've got some questions coming through from our schools, mostly in Europe today. So we have no link, no sound, and no one watching, so that's very exciting. That's what we're getting through from London. But maybe that will have changed in the past couple of minutes.
We're live. We've got 3 people watching, 3 schools watching.
We've got 3 schools watching. But we'll see what happens in the next few minutes, just to find out. And just whilst we iron out these kinks, I don't know whether it's a polar bear or a reindeer that's attacking our internet cable. What we'll do is we'll just give you a brief overview of the science that we're doing up here on XL Kaplan Arctic Live. So we have a team from the University of Exeter and looking at a couple of things. Yeah. So we've got the ocean acidification work.
Yep, ocean acidification.
And just for our viewers, what is ocean acidification?
So basically, the CO2 that's being given off by humans is being absorbed into the oceans partially, and this is causing our oceans to have a reduction in pH, therefore becoming more acidic, which can affect different animals in different ways that live in our oceans. Okay,
so seeing sort of that human impact and whether that's happening up here. We're pretty far away from lots of places.
Far away.
So is that happening up here? And someone said to me that change in ocean pH, that change in ocean chemistry, was happening fastest in the Arctic.
It is. I think it's happening about double the speed compared to the average of the rest of the world. Partly because in colder waters the CO2 is more readily absorbed, so therefore the pH is reducing at a faster rate.
Okay. Oh wow. And so, I'm getting into some deeper questions here before we actually introduce you yourself properly. But we're just waiting for describing the science. We're getting the stream just sort of hooked up and lovely and running properly. Is it fair to say that the Arctic acts like a bit like or could act like an early warning system for the rest of the planet?
Yeah, potentially. It's happening here quicker, so the pH will be reducing faster. So therefore, we should be able to see the effects of it sooner, and not make assumptions, but we can maybe predict what this might mean for the rest of the planet based on what we're seeing up here.
Amazing. And the second piece of work that we're doing up here is obviously we're looking at plastics, and more specifically microplastics in the fjord. What's that all about? We've had it a lot on the news. Why are we up in the Arctic looking at that?
So we're up here trawling for microplastics at different depths because we want to see which plastics are local, so from the Arctic region, and which plastics are brought up here on ocean currents. and we can see that by looking at the different salinities of the water. And the higher salinity will be the water coming up from the Atlantic, and therefore not local plastic. Just to see if there's a difference in what's being brought up, and if there is a difference and a lot of plastic is being brought up, then it gets to the polar regions and doesn't really have many places to go.
Okay.
So obviously that would be pretty
It's like,
bad,
so like the sort of gathering sort of at the top of the world.
Yeah, and the plastic will just probably settle out. I'm not an expert on plastics, but yeah.
So we're up here trawling for plastic.
Trawling for plastics. Well,
Thinking about if we can get out there, thinking about where that plastic might be coming from, and then when we better understand where plastic is in the environment, we can also think about what kind of impact it might be having on the environment.
Exactly. Once we know it's here, we can then look further into: is it in the sediments? Is it getting into our animals eating it and being passed up the food chain and so forth?
Brilliant. So I'm just waiting for confirmation that we have sound, we have schools, we have all that kind of thing. We've got a nod from Ellie, who's a wonderful producer and everything else and more. Everything else up here in the Arctic. I'm just going to get a nod from London because I know that we've had a little bit that's been looked great up here. But obviously, as it's gone down a very, 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 very long connection all the way to the schools in Europe who are watching, some of the connection might have gone a bit wonky, I think, using a technical term for this. But there are no schools here at the moment, apparently. So what would be great is that we're just going to wait for them to come on stream, and we'll find out quite where they are. If there are any questions that any of the schools watching would like to put to Clara, please get those up on the live chat on YouTube now. I'm just going to start off by asking Clara basically to introduce herself and tell us what she does. What do you do?
That is a good question. So yeah, as Jamie said, my name's Clara. I'm a PhD student at Exeter, and I'm looking at mainly ocean acidification with a combined stressor of metal pollutions and the effects it has on organisms such as polychaetes, which are basically sea worms, marine worms.
And so, I mean, just to deconstruct on that, so ocean acidification we've talked about before,
Yeah.
there's change in ocean chemistry. Then we've got these metal pollutants. So how can, because metals, seems like it shouldn't be pollution. How can that metal be tough on animals?
So the metal gets into the water through various ways, like factories, etc., fertilizers, and it can cause a lot of stress to the animals. And what I'm looking at with ocean acidification is that sometimes the toxicity can be higher when the pH is lower, especially copper, which is mainly what I'm looking at. So we're looking at how the toxicity is predicted to change and if it actually does change when I use it with worms, basically.
Okay, so if I'm understanding, this is we have these problems facing the marine environment,
Exactly.
and in the past that maybe scientists have looked at, does this toxic metal harm worms, these polychaete worms, or does ocean acidification harm these? And what you'll correct me if I'm wrong, is that when we combine these, often it's not just 1 + 1, it's actually worse than that.
Yeah, so everything that's happening is not happening alone. So be that the temperature rises, the carbon dioxide, pollution, it's all happening together. So looking at just one stressor is not going to give you the best overview because, like you said, if you add copper and OA together, then could it create something even worse, or actually will it mitigate something, or will it not cause anything? So that's what people are trying to understand at the moment.
These combinations.
Exactly, yeah.
Amazing. And so, I mean, what is a PhD? That's a doctorate. How do you get into doing this kind of thing? This further study at university?
So I got into it in not the most conventional way. Usually, most people do their degree at university and then either apply for a PhD or do a master's and then apply for a PhD. But I actually started a master's after I finished my undergraduate at Exeter, and I converted from my research master's straight to my PhD halfway through, which I don't know is that common, but that's how I got into it. So
amazing. And so, I mean, just to give you also career route to where we are now, and sort of this whole masters and the sort of doctorate sort of terminology, what inspired you to be interested in the oceans and in the sea?
So when I was at school, I just really liked biology and maths, and I decided that when I was going to apply for my degree, I wanted it to be in something that I enjoyed, because that's what I thought. You might as well do something that you enjoy. And I did biology, and part of my degree was some marine biology modules.
Okay.
And they really inspired me. They were definitely my favourite modules. And I managed to then get on a research master's with Kerry. And yeah, that's
Dr. Kerry Lewis.
Dr. Kerry Lewis.
Who in fact is to blame for me being involved in marine science as well. We spent some time together on the Clara Arctic survey.
Yeah, I feel like she's got quite a few people.
She's got quite people engaged in the marine environment. Amazing. And so we've got some questions coming through from our audience here. We've got some great schools, we've got some amazing schools here. We've got Portugal, we've got Spain, we've got Broadcliff Primary School in Exeter watching, fantastic. I don't know whether you know Broad, nice and local. So maybe you can pop in on when you're back in Exeter. We've got a question here through from Rachel Smith. Clara, have you seen any marine life?
What, whilst we've been here?
I think probably whilst we've been here rather than ever.
We haven't yet.
A couple of
birds?
Down by the shore, we've got the acidification and the polychaetes.
We haven't whilst we've been on the boat, but we've done a bit of rock pooling whilst we've been out here. We've actually seen some crabs, which Katie, one of the other scientists, is really interested in. And we've seen a few little what's it? Arthropods, yeah. And I also saw a worm, which may not sound the most interesting to you, but it was pretty exciting and looked pretty different to the worms that we see around Exeter. So
okay, so a new type of marine worm for you. Fantastic. So just going back to questions that are coming through. Here we are. We've got the American School of Bilbao. And this is sort of looking at a lot of the sort of like the daily life and the sort of what it's like up to be here. We've got Jorge San Miguel and asking, what time do you get up in the Arctic, and what does a typical day look like for you?
So breakfast is at 8 o'clock, so we get up around 7ish, get ready to go over for breakfast. That's if you sleep that late, because we're in the time of the year when it's 24-hour daylight, which for me I've never experienced before, so it's taken me a while to sort of get used to it not being dark and not really feeling sleepy. I guess you were the same when you...
Yeah, very much. Well, I was quite lucky the first time I was in the high Arctic and going through the transition. So it was never, I didn't go straight into 24-hour daylight.
But I think, we're slowly getting used to that, which means we're sleeping a bit better. And then after breakfast, we'll sort of pack up all the stuff that we need for the day. And when it's not so windy and miserable here, we go down to the boat and go out for the day, sampling at different sites, both trawling for plastics and taking water samples. Then we get back in the evening for the evening dinner, and a bit of a lowdown of what's happened, and then
That's great. We've got a couple of other schools. Let's give a quick shout out, and as we work through these questions, we've got some St Paul's Junior School in Shepton Mallet, and we've got some beads, Miss Turpin's class in beads in Ormskirk, and we've got one of our careers E-Club as well. So that's fantastic to have all these schools from around really sort of European time zone at the moment. And we've got the University of Cambridge Primary School. Fantastic to have you back. So I'm just going to do sort of like probably fairest if we do sort of one question per school. We sort of rotate it through like that. Have you discovered any new Arctic species? And this is from University of Cambridge Primary School.
I personally haven't, no. We haven't found any as a team whilst we've been up here yet, but we've still got over a week left, so who knows? We could do. And come back with something new. And
is that really because that's not something that actually we're focused on at the moment?
So we're focused on something quite specific that we're not actively looking for new species. But obviously that doesn't mean that one, I know technically could get trapped in one of our plastic nets and brought up to the surface. So yeah, who knows?
Just on the lookout.
Exactly.
Here we have St Paul's Junior School in Shepton Mallet. Any big inspirations apart from Dr. Lewis, of course? Any big inspirations to become a marine scientist?
I just sort of came into it quite late. It was never something when I was like a little girl that I thought this is definitely what I want to be. So I know it sounds a bit cheesy, but it probably was Kerry.
Brilliant. Moving on to some bees in Ormskirk. And this is a question from Alex Williams. What are polychaetes, and what those two words mean?
So poly means many, and chaetes is kind of like a little bristle. So it means like many bristles. Loads of the worms that we see have sort of like bristles coming out like this that they wiggle around. So yeah, that's what it means, polychaetes.
So they're a type of worm?
Yeah, basically they're a worm.
And they use those bristles for moving about?
Movement. They're very good at burrowing into the sediment, making their little tubes that they can sit in and stuff.
Oh, yeah. Fantastic. Now we're moving across to the E-Club. And question, and this is maybe sort of a number of people interested, is it difficult to be a woman in this field of work?
I personally haven't had any issues with being a woman. I don't know if that's because at Exeter we're surrounded by quite a few females in the lab, and I wouldn't say there's any gender gap or it's noticeably more males. I'm sure there might be, but me personally, no. I found it exactly the same as if I was a male, I'd imagine. So.
Okay, well that's brilliant to both boys and girls who are watching, is that you really feel that this is a
Exactly.
career that's open irrespective of gender.
Definitely, yeah.
Fantastic.
We'll
so some more girls up
more
here.
girls, yeah.
Okay. Fantastic. Back to the American School of Bilbao. And this question from Astrid. How long have you been in the Arctic? And I know this is your first time, so the second part of the question. Have you found anything surprising or different from what you expected living and working up here?
I found it a lot more comfortable than I thought. The place we're staying in is really great, and we've been well looked after. As I mentioned earlier, the 24-hour sunlight was definitely something that I just hadn't thought it would be as crazy as it is, and maybe just the weather. I didn't really think about it as much as probably we should have. That actually sometimes we can't do what we want to do. and we have to come up with different plans and different things that we're going to do in a day to make the most of our time. So yeah.
Okay, fantastic. I mean, it's a we can make it more uncomfortable for you if you.
Oh no, I'm quite enjoying my bed, thanks.
I mean, just to tell people, I mean, there's this idea of a research station. I know, I mean, these research stations are great, but why do these types of places exist? I mean, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because I mean, you're based in Exeter, but you're doing research in the Arctic.
Yeah. Well, I guess we are, even though we're comfortable with super remote. There's only one way in, one way out, and I know you can't see it now, but it is amazing here. We're surrounded by mountains and the fjord, and although we're based in Exeter, it's also really important that we understand what's going on elsewhere in the world, and especially in extreme environments where perhaps animals are already at greater stress, or maybe not, but that we can, compare our temperate climate to a much more harsh polar climate.
Fantastic. So the research station is all over home from home.
It is.
Yes.
That's what it's turning into, home from home.
Fantastic. St Paul's Junior School. Do you here we go. And I know this is not your area of expertise, so we can leave this for Nick and Katie with plastics question.
Okay.
But top line, how are microplastics affecting the ocean?
So microplastics are super small. Sometimes you can't see them with the naked eye, and they're basically being eaten accidentally by all sorts of creatures, and sometimes staying within the animal. So when they are then eaten by a bigger creature, it could be passed up the food chain, or it could cause damage to the organism itself, having a foreign object inside it that it thinks is food, but obviously is not food.
Okay.
Very brief.
Very well. Well, we can come to the plastics more when we have Nick and Katie, because I know acidification and toxic metals are your thing. And this going down to St Bede's in Ormskirk. This is from Claudia Brady. We've talked a little bit about the differences, but what's the best thing about being in the Arctic? What's been the best thing so far? And this is your first Arctic expedition.
I think the best thing is just how stunningly beautiful this place is. I always thought coming up here it would be amazing, but it doesn't hit you until you step off the plane. That is just an amazing place that's so remote and so beautiful, and yeah, it's pretty cool. Not many people get to come here, so I think that's probably definitely just the best thing about it, and being able to do your work in such an amazing place does make it slightly more exciting. Better than being stuck in a lab in Exeter.
And just coming back, the follow-up question from that, has it sort of changed, being up here, has it sort of changed your view at all about the importance of your work, of, that ocean acidification, even, potentially affecting marine life up here, that sort of doubling down on how important it is to understand these environments?
Yeah, definitely. It makes it really important that we can, as a group of scientists, understand as many possible environments as we can, to get a better understanding of what's happening, better predictions of what we think will happen in the future. Just to find out what's really going on.
Brilliant. I'm just going to take some of the questions that have been coming through on the live chat. We've been looking at some that have been coming through beforehand. This is from Broadclist. What is the temperature today?
The temperature today must be around 0? 2 degrees.
I think it rains. It is raining outside. I don't know whether we can quickly focus on the rain-drenched window through the reindeer antlers, but it is a properly horrible day, more suited to autumn in Scotland than it is for the Arctic, and it's really a big problem. The rain in the Arctic. At least it's going to swing the camera around to the other window, so you can have a better view out through that way. So one of the problems with rain is it creates a frozen layer, which makes it really tricky for animals like reindeer and Arctic foxes. So we've got a reindeer out here. But if you imagine if it rains now and then freezes, we're going to have a hard layer of ice. It's much harder for a reindeer to get through, to get to the tundra, to get through those bits of sort of old grass, than if it was snow, which is quite easy to move away. The same is with the Arctic fox. If it's, getting some goslings, some baby geese over the summer, burying them in caches, then if there's a layer of ice over it, it makes it really hard to access those caches when you get that sort of frozen layer of ice rather than the snow there. So it's raining more and more here, and it is making life a lot tougher for a number of the species that live here in the Arctic. Coming on to some other questions we've had coming through on the live chat. This is from Lamberhurst St Mary's Sapphire class. Is there anything frightening about being in the Arctic?
Definitely polar bears. We haven't seen any yet, but the safety is really important whilst we're up here. And on our first couple of days, we were given a lot of safety talks and had rifle training and how to use radios properly, so that if we were to see a polar bear or come across a polar bear, we'd be more equipped to deal with them and hopefully come out safely on the other side.
Brilliant. And apparently you are the crack shot in the team, I hear.
We did get a little bit competitive, but yeah, no, we all passed and we were all pretty good. I think the girls actually beat the boys, which was nice to see. But yeah, no, it was fun, but obviously the important message is safety, and I do feel a lot safer once we completed it, and know that if there was a polar bear or a sighting, that we'd be more comfortable with how to deal with it. And
so, you're taking a rifle, flare pistols, radios, satellite phones. What kind of, is other safety, or is that, what do you need to take with you when you go out beyond this village area?
Yeah, so when we go on the boat, we don't need to take a rifle, but we need to take the radio and a satellite phone, and the boat has its own radio as well, so if we got in any trouble we could radio in. And obviously on the boat a life jacket is important, and then when we go on foot, if we were to leave the perimeter of the base, we would need, as you said, the rifle, the radios, the flare gun, and obviously equipment if we were to get stuck, so we'd stay warm and be safe.
Exactly. So this is from Miss Turpin's class. We've got Lucas and Louis. Do you have shops like Morrison's?
We do not have Morrison's here. However, there is a little shop, and it's got lots of snacks in case we got hungry, and a few little things that we might need, like shampoo if we ran out or something. And it's open for 2 hours a week.
2 hours a week?
2 hours a week. So basically when the flight gets in, it's opening that evening for an hour, and the flights come in twice a week. So if you forgot something or ran out of something, you are able to pop to the little shop.
As long as it's on a Monday or a Thursday or Friday?
And as long as it's between 5 and 6.
As long as it's between 5 and 6.
So you
but
have
apart
to
from
make
that,
sure you make those times.
Brilliant. And the northernmost shop in the world.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah.
We can't promise everybody a postcard, but maybe the best question gets a postcard.
Best question will send one back.
From the northernmost shop in the world.
And they've got cool stamps with the polar bear on, so.
There we go.
Exactly.
What more could you want? So best questions now. I think we've got 12 more minutes. 12:45 we'll be stopping this broadcast because we have to make sure our wonderful field producer and scientists are fed. And very important to make sure that we get a little bit of food in, and we get to the canteen before lunch stops. Otherwise, it could be a very hungry and damp afternoon.
Yeah, we might get a bit grumpy.
Might get a bit grumpy. Okay, well that's another thing. Grumpy scientists in a very remote space. That's one thing to look out for.
Probably worse than a polar bear.
Probably worse than a polar bear. Okay. Well, definitely we'll make sure we make the best use of our last 11, 12 minutes here. So back to the questions that come through. I think we've got up to the University of Cambridge primary school questions. Where do you get supplies from? Where do supplies come from? I mean, did you have to? Was there sort of everything that was here, or?
So most of the stuff we brought ourselves on the plane over. However, the British base that we're in now does have quite well equipped, isn't it? So if we needed anything, we should be able to get it here. And we are shipping a few things out. A few of our samples will be shipped out as they'll be quite heavy, and the plane is limited to how much weight we can carry back to.
Okay, so and is that the James Clark Ross, one of the British survey ships that it's coming up here?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
Okay,
so we're storing them here in the freezers, and then it's being picked up.
Freezers in the Arctic?
At some point in the near future.
Sounds bonkers. Great. St Paul's Junior School. What should we do if we see rubbish or other things polluting the sea, especially if there were sort of fish around and other life around? What should young people do if they see sort of litter and rubbish around the sea?
Well, if you're on the beach, I would definitely encourage you to try and have a little beach tidy and clean it up a bit. Obviously, don't go jumping out of boats and put yourself in danger if you see a plastic bag in the sea. But when it's safe to do so, beach cleans can be a really important and really good thing to do. And if you go along with all your friends, it can actually be quite fun. So I definitely encourage a beach clean. Go down to your local.
We've got the 2 minutes beach clean, or pick up five items of litter every time you're on the beach, and those kind of ideas.
There's loads of little ideas that you can get involved with.
It doesn't have to be a massive,
No, you don't have to go crazy. Just little and often is also equally as important. So.
Fantastic. And here we go. From Emily Martin, from St Bede's in Ormskirk. What happens if you need medical care?
So, on base, there isn't a hospital or anything like that. We have people that are first aid trained, and we have some basic supplies. But if anything worse than that was to happen, we would either be flown out or helicoptered out in an emergency to, would it be to Longyear?
Yeah, so we can also call the doctor at Longyear, and we can get sort of phone advice. So if it's sort of in between something that we can't deal with, but doesn't need evacuation, then the doctor can always give us advice, and there's a dispensary in the main building. We can get whatever sort of medicines that we might need from there. But yes, you're absolutely right. It would be a helicopter to Longyearbyen, which is the main town on Svalbard. Main town, population about 2,500. And then if it's even more serious, there's no proper hospital in Longyear, would be a jet to the mainland.
Yeah.
There we go. So coming back, and this is love rotate. These are such great questions. This again from the American School of Bilbao. So many good questions. I'm just trying to pick one. What's the hardest part? This is from Anne and Astrid. The hardest part of being in the Arctic?
I think it's probably the weather conditions. They're constantly changing, and you can never be exactly sure what you're going to wake up to. And then it's just about adapting what we do or how we survey things based on what we wake up to and what's happening out there. So that's probably the hardest thing, because it's something that we can't control. Most other things we can. So yeah, it's unpredictable.
It's great to have the Concord School in Ibadan, Nigeria, join us as well. And the students there would like to know, what does it feel like to be in the Arctic?
As in like temperature-wise?
It could be emotionally, it could be climatically, it could be scientifically.
Well, my first impression was, wow, this place is pretty cool. And yeah, it's just really exciting. For me, it's everything I'm seeing and everything I'm doing is really new. So that's really exciting to be experiencing different places to work in. Weather-wise, it's not really cold. However, there's such high winds at the moment that the wind chill makes it feel pretty cold.
The winter was -15 yesterday.
Yeah, it
Definitely
did feel like that.
Yeah.
So when it's windy, it is pretty cold up here. We have to make sure that we definitely wrap up well and get our hats and all our layers on to be prepared for when we head outside.
Amazing. Quick question. I'm just trying to find it again to just make sure we could get who asked it. This is from Faith Barker, and this is from St. Peter, Northcote again. Have you ever been lost on a research trip?
No, luckily.
No, maybe, or no?
No, not on research. Like
but you do get lost.
Personally, like if I'm going across Dartmoor or something, probably got lost. But up here we haven't got lost, and hopefully won't get lost. The boats that we go on all have GPS and maps, and we're able to know where we are at all times and know how to get back. So yeah, hopefully we won't.
And talking about the boats, I mean, this is a question a little bit from the University of Cambridge Primary School. How do you get to the research sites? I mean, where are they? Are they quite remote? And how do you travel around?
As in out on the boat?
Yeah.
So some of them are close to the shore. Some of them we have to get the boat out and go inland towards the glaciers. We did have a little bit of a problem when we went out a few days ago, is that there was actually sea ice, so we couldn't quite make it to the exact point that we wanted to get to. So we just took samples as close to it as we could. And we're also hoping when the wind dies down to go the opposite way and go out into the mouth to do some more deep water sampling. And all of these we go on the boat to get to them all.
I suppose, yeah, the other way, if you weren't doing marine research and if you're doing glaciology, the other way you get about up here is using a snowmobile or a skidoo. So the glaciology folk, the terrestrial science, the science on land, will be using snowmobiles and skidoos, maybe even a helicopter. We've had over the past few days, and then doing the boat work to study the ocean.
Yeah.
Perfect. It's really, really great. We've got students at DPS school in India have just joined us and are asking how have humans and pollution affected the Arctic region apart from the sort of ice melting. Maybe you'd like to talk a little bit about ocean acidification.
Yeah, that's a really great question. So humans are putting a lot of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, and this carbon dioxide is partially absorbed by the oceans, and as the oceans absorb this carbon dioxide, it changes the chemistry of it, which lowers the pH, and they become more acidic. And this can potentially be really harmful to certain marine species and animals. And then from a plastic side of things, marine animals can ingest plastics, and it can harm them. They think they're eating food, but they're not, and it can get passed up through the food chains.
I mean, with ocean acidification, I remember the first time I came across it, and when people might look at it for the first time, we've got this sort of average drop in ocean pH from about 8.2 to about 8.1 over the past 250 years.
Yeah.
That 0.1 is...
It doesn't seem massive.
It doesn't seem massive.
It doesn't seem massive, but it is really massive. There's a big increase by about 30% of the hydrogen that's in the water, and by 2100 it's predicted to drop another 0.4 units, which is a lot more than the 0.1, and we're seeing the effects of the 0.1 already. So yeah, it might not seem a massive amount, but that small change can have a massive effect on the organisms.
And it's because we've got the pH scale is something called logarithmic, isn't it?
Yeah,
so that each point is like I don't know what the numbers are, but you can tell me what the numbers are. But sort of even a 0.1 is a huge difference.
Exactly. Yeah, it's on a log scale, so it's a lot bigger than it actually looks.
It's a lot bigger than it actually looks. Fantastic. I think we've got time for just one more question, and we're just looking at the live stream here. In fact, let's pick one from here. This is Lewis from Miss Turpin's class. What do you do for entertainment in the Arctic?
What have we done so far? So there's a big common room, and it's quite fun to chat to everyone. Everyone up here has some pretty cool stories to tell, especially our
station manager.
Yes. That you'll meet later on in the week. He has some great stories, so they're pretty entertaining to listen to, and he has a way with his words.
Fantastic. Well, Clara, thank you so much for joining us. I know you're joining us again this afternoon in a number of hours' time. Please check on the Digital Explorer YouTube channel for this exact timings of the talks coming up. We've got an Ask Me Anything open Q&A in an hour's time, an hour and a quarter's time. Then 2 hours after that, we have a live investigation, so we'll be looking at food chains and making an Arctic food chain mobile. Get to have a wonderful chat with Clara again, and we will have that. That's sort of US, UK time zones for you guys. And then wonderfully, we have an Ask Me Anything, and Ellie, who's behind the camera at the moment, and myself, Jamie, will try and answer all your Arctic questions and probably scoop up a few of the questions we haven't managed to get to so far. So thanks so much for watching XL Catlin Arctic Live. Thank you, Clara. Thank you, Ellie. And we'll see you later. Bye-bye.